Hello, hello, and welcome to Retrospective Rants, with me, Joey Huff, as your host. This time, I do not bring you a rant, but a play. Specifically, the first scene of the first play I ever wrote, Synthetic Truths. Well, what is Synthetic Truths? What's it about? My play is the story of an afterlife courtroom with famous historical figures serving as the jury, advocates, bailiffs, witnesses, the whole works. And for this case, they shall be participating in the trial of Erwin Rommel, a German general of World War II, a man who was as famous for his tactical acumen as he was for his willful defiance of Nazi policy, to the point where he even refused kill orders sent to him by the party elite. But do those kindnesses exonerate him of his place in one of the most horrific and terrifying regimes in history? Well, this play explores that very conundrum. As an aside, I will be reading directly from the script. This includes stage directions and terminology specific to the play. I may also state the name of whichever character is speaking before I give their dialogue. That's because there are quite a few characters, and I only have so many different voices. If I have the time, I might put out a supporting episode so that I can explain what all of those specific terms mean, and also expand on my reasoning for portraying certain characters the way that I have. But enough with all of that preamble. I now welcome you to Synthetic Truths. Scene 1. Conflicting Theses. Common Rooms. Dialogue Configuration. Hegel stands and gesticulates wildly while Tolkien and Jane sit at the table. Tolkien eats from a small plate as Jane writes a letter. There is a small continental breakfast laid out, and the time of day appears to be morning. Hegel, who is very excited, says, "And so you see, my friends, all life and its conflicts can be summarized with my method." Tolkien is busy finishing off his bagel. Hegel is oblivious to this and continues excitedly. "All things in life, which I call a thesis, inevitably meet opposition, which I call an antithesis. The conflict between these two forces will isolate their individual weaknesses and create a new and revelatory principle of existence. This is a new ideal, and I call it the synthesis." Tolkien turns over to Jane. "Miss Austen, is that tea chai or Earl Grey?" Jane doesn't even look from her letter, but smiles. "Neither, Mr. Tolkien." Tolkien is curious and reaches over to the pot. Oh my, it's chamomile. I believe I shall be adventurous today." He fills his cup, while Hegel becomes increasingly distressed to the point of looking emotionally wounded. "Are either of you paying attention?" Jane and Tolkien look at each other for a moment before nodding their heads mournfully. "Sir, it's not that we find your theories to be lacking, but you have been unceasing in their declaration for the past 4 days." Hegel is still insistent. "You two are some of the most brilliant minds of literature. Surely you are not adverse to intellectual discussion." Tolkien gathers his dishes and silverware. "No, not at all. But you, sir, are something of an expert in the field. I think it might benefit the discussion if you would first allow us to collect our faculties." Jane decides without any sign of complaint to give Hegel her full attention. "And as I recall, we took part in one of your debates. as did His Excellency and Mr. Kant. You all hardly said anything, though, except for Dante, and he had nothing to offer except whining. Tolkien now stands. And what were the nature of his complaints? Something about me oversimplifying human nature. Well, there you have it. I dare say we share his opinion, wouldn't you say, Mr. Tolkien? Tolkien has by now disposed of his silverware and is returning to the table. Indeed, Miss Austen. Hegel is shocked. You don't think I can summarize humanity in a philosophical method? I find that surprising, considering you do the same with your novels. Tolkien takes a pipe from his coat and debates whether he should smoke indoors or not. My friend, the entire reason I became a writer is because the world and the people in it are too difficult to merely summarize. He decides to put the pipe away. Besides, I think we owe it to other people and ourselves to recognize and appreciate such complexity, rather than merely diagnose them. And I dare say, Mr. Hegel, that you may be of the same opinion. Nonsense. My convictions are as firm as Egyptian granite. If that is true, sir, why do you repeatedly seek a contrary opinion? That wins a smile from Tolkien, and causes Hegel to consider his answer. Well, it is an educated man who entertains different opinions, and, damn it, I get further along with Mr. Presley than I do with you. Elizabeth descends from the staircase on stage right, following behind Gaius. Oh, it's true, Your Excellency, and that's the third one she's taken in a week alone. Gaius holds out a hand and helps her down the stairs. That is hardly surprising. He turns towards Tolkien. Good morning, poet. Good morning. He turns towards Hegel. Good morning, citizen. Good morning. And then he hesitates a moment before turning to Jane. Good morning, Miss Austen. Good morning, Your Excellency. Tolkien sits down, enjoying another cup of tea, while Hegel paces impatiently, though Jane notices Gaius's hesitation. Before Gaius can respond, Elizabeth interrupts him. Jane, I'm so happy to see you. It's wonderful to enjoy breakfast with another refined English lady. It's certainly better than sharing a room with that Russian afterthought. Tolkien and Gaius exchange glances before the latter shakes his head and goes to sit on the couch. Despite that, Jane maintains her pleasant composure. What has Catherine done now? Elizabeth looks at Tolkien's plate. Is that tea? He nods. Do you have anything stronger? He shakes his head, looking moderately concerned this time. Well, it is far too early, I suppose. Do you remember that last man they brought in here? The composer, the deaf one? The other characters nod, except for Gaius. Well, as I was leaving our room, I saw Catherine polishing her riding boots in the lounge. When that man came over to her, he asked, very politely, Do you require aid, mein Schönheit? Then she said, Yes, I need someone to tighten my straps. My God. I know. That pun was awful. Elizabeth rolls her eyes, then resumes her story. Anyway, she said that one of the buttons on her coat was loose and then practically dragged him into one of the janitor's closets. Let me guess. It's locked from the inside now? Elizabeth nods mournfully, then turns to Tolkien. You're married, aren't you? Does your wife ever behave like this? Tolkien, reading a book and unfazed by the question, answers, Not at all, Your Highness. He does know she wants a more concrete response, though, so he puts the book down and addresses her directly. I met my wife when I was little more than a university student. Neither of us was well off financially, and the entire affair was chaste, and perhaps did possess a touch of the storybook romance which I tend to criticize. In short, it was, and still is, an experience untainted by lust or cumbersome innuendo and radiating with pure love. Elizabeth looks distressed. God, why can't I find men like you? But wait, I thought you were seeing Ben. Elizabeth is trying to check her temper now. Well, at Mr. Cash's party a few days ago, Mr. Franklin told me that he wanted someone who was more feminine. Then he handed me his empty wine-glass and left me at the hors d'oeuvre table. She then turns to Jane. And you warned me about him. You looked right at him and told me he was disloyal and chauvinistic before he'd even come to greet us. Oh, it's all right. Elizabeth interrupts her. We're friends. Just call me Elizabeth. Besides, I gave up on imitating so-called womanly grace a long time ago. Gaius, who hasn't shown any interest in the conversation thus far, finally chimes in. That's not true at all, Your Highness. You are a woman of singular quality. Elizabeth is surprised. Really? Gaius is still looking at his book, supposedly oblivious to her reaction. Oh, yes. You have a keen mind and an elegant temper, and they both radiate through the tone of your voice and permeate every movement of your gentle figure. Elizabeth and Jane smile with surprise at each other before turning back to Gaius, and Elizabeth asks, What about my eyes? Gaius still isn't looking at her and is focused on his book. Two pools of light enclosed beneath a cascade of silk and crimson. Your countenance and complexion outshine every diamond and bauble at the most extravagant of soirees. You're a woman of the highest caliber, and any man would be blessed to even kiss your hand. Elizabeth is still smiling and is obviously enamored. I've never met a man who thought I was anything more than a crown, or an accessory to it, at any rate. Gaius, still looking at his book, says, That is to be expected, given your upbringing. Elizabeth's smile is very much gone now. My upbringing? Yes, most children with your parentage tend to have self-esteem issues. I think yours may have communicated into your tenure as a ruler as well. Elizabeth is now very angry. Excuse you? Well, you are something of a blunt instrument. You never made any real attempt to portray yourself as benevolent, unless you count forcing Shakespeare to distribute propaganda as benevolent. You never censured anyone? No, there was never any need to. My rivals knew that I could have them exterminated with a snap of my fingers, and the people were thankful that I'd saved them from years of civil war. Peace and culture flowed throughout the empire, and even our enemies gazed up in wonder at our achievements. I was even deified. The perks of being a pagan. Elizabeth gets up from her chair and walks towards the main door. Well, I would expect nothing else from the orphan son of a syphilis-riddled tyrant. Jane goes to follow after Elizabeth, but stops by Gaius, who is still reading, and she says, You knew she was smitten, didn't you? Gaius actually looks up at her and smiles. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. What does puzzle me is that you indulged her for as long as you did. She could have made use of that renowned pragmatism of hers, instead of acting on her equally famous passions. By passions, do you mean feelings such as love or trust? How long will you continue avoiding the real question? How long will you avoid asking what has been on your mind since our first conversation? Jane nods and grins begrudgingly. Your point is taken. Do you enjoy toying with the emotions of other people? Gaius is still reclined, but by now he's put down his book, since Jane has received his full attention. Unlike Her Royal Majesty, I am not the product of birthright. When my adopted father died, I took control of the empire using nothing but my wits, will, and my debatable skill with people. I became ruler of the world because I had earned it. I recognized both quality and weakness and managed both according to the needs of the empire. I had the skills to achieve greatness, and I used them for that exact purpose. So yes, I do indulge a childish sense of amusement when crushing the aspirations of some lost child of entitlement whose greatest struggle was avoiding commitment. Jane is still smiling, but more softly this time, and this annoys Gaius. I will most likely regret asking, but did I say something amusing? Your Excellency, you are without a doubt the most successful leader in history. and you have just now equated your manner with that of a spoiled child." With that, Jane follows after Elizabeth, and Gaius gets up from his chair and looks after her. What a refined creature she is. No, well, she's not the only conversationalist here, and he looks at Tolkien. "Of course, I just insulted one of your monarchs and was shamed by one of your peers, so I assume you don't wish any sort of discussion with me, yes?" "Your assumption would be correct, Excellency." "I suppose that leaves me with Hegel." Gaius then turns to the staircase on stage left, and his expression becomes triumphant as Leonardo and Dante descend the stairs. Or perhaps not. Signors da Vinci and Alighieri! They rush to kiss his hands, but he pushes them away and instead embraces them. "Here we are, 3 sons of Italy. But you look sorrowful, my brothers. What could possibly trouble such mammoth persons as yourselves?" Dante is very distressed, almost ludicrously so. "It is pain beyond imagining, my most reverend sovereign, but I am far too distressed to even begin. Leo shakes his head in amusement. "It is not quite as apocalyptic as my friend claims, Excellency, but my canvas is missing from my studio, and mine own texts, the fruit of my mind's womb, have been plucked from their most sacred perch." "He means from under his pillow. Are they simply lost, or do you suspect theft?" "They have been wrenched away by hands unfit for the maintenance of laboratories, and violated by gazes better suited for the ogling of street walkers." "Yeah, they were probably taken." "You ought to be more concerned, Leonardo. Both your identity and mine are in the most likely excrement-riddled hands of some bowl-cut-wearing Philistine. Are you not the least bit concerned? Have you no integrity as an artist?" Leonardo shrugs his shoulders and smiles. "Unlike you, my friend, I try to find the goodness in people, and that is what I incorporate into my art." A loud clattering of footsteps arises, a sound which causes Leonardo to sigh. "But I have been disappointed before." Mao follows Hannibal down one of the staircases. They are both carrying a large painting with a covering on it, and when they both get to the floor, Mao says, "Good morning, capitalist scum puppies. Looking for something?" Dante is practically shrieking in horror. "You fork-tongued, pseudo-plebeian, horse-bred, malcontented!" Leonardo rolls his eyes and gently pushes Dante aside. "Is that my canvas underneath that sheet?" Both Hannibal and Mao are by the couch at this point and are holding opposite sides of the painting, Hannibal looking much more boastful than his cohort. "Yes, sir, my Italian-born asshat, and look at what we've done with it." He draws back the sheet and reveals a picture of debatable quality, which displays a burning building. "Feast your eyes on the destruction of Rome." Mao is surprised and annoyed at this comment. "No, fool, this is the U.S. Capitol building." "Really? But it's got the little spirally things at the doors." "You mean columns?" Hannibal nods innocently, causing Mao to massage his temples. "The U.S. buildings have that too. All the imperialist swine try to copycat his excellency." Mao salutes Gaius mockingly. "Those pages are from my manuscripts." He turns to Leo. "Don't tell me you're not as enraged as I am. Look at what these monsters have done with my intellect's lifeblood. Oh!" Dante nearly faints, but Gaius holds him with one hand and pinches his neck with the other. "Oh! Oh! Thank you, Your Excellency." Leonardo studies the painting intently. "Well, the brush stroke has a certain, Nope, I can't do it. I drew people in the nude, and this," he points at the painting, "is still the most disgusting thing I've seen in my entire life." Tolkien gets up from his seat and walks up to Gaius. "Perhaps a bit of calm is needed, wouldn't you say, gentlemen?" Gaius appreciates this deference on Tolkien's part and says, "Agreed, my friend." He indicates towards Hannibal and Mao. Now we all have our own indulgences, small vices that get us through the day. He points at Tolkien, who is still holding his pipe under his coat. But you two have stolen the work of these two men, who are no greater or lesser than yourselves, and used it for the purposes of a childish prank. Have you anything to say about that? Hannibal makes a show of scratching his head. Wow, that really is a lot to think about. What do you think, Mao? Should we harmonize our response? Indeed, Mr. Barker. Hannibal and Mao both look at Dante and say, Suck it, losers! As Dante rushes forward while being held back by Gaius, Joan and Tokugawa come through the main doors. They behold the spectacle before them, look at each other, and then roll their eyes. And Joan says, Well, it's another one of those days. She closes the door behind her very loudly and gains the attention of the entire cast. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't interrupting anything, was I? She smiles. Hannibal drops the painting and leaves Mao to struggle and fall with it. Oh, you most certainly did, little girl. Tokugawa stands before him. I would advise you to back away, General. Lady Joan is still fresh from sparring, and is quite likely to make short work of you. Hannibal gazes intently at Joan. Is that so? Well, prove it then. Let's see how you match up to a real warrior. Hannibal drops into a fighting crouch and lunges at Joan with a straight punch. She deftly bobs her head to the side, and he hits the wooden door and hurts his hand. He is now fallen to the ground and starts hugging the injured hand. Joan doesn't register Hannibal's pain as she corrals the jury members. Okay, everybody, we're on again. Come on. Oh, and good morning, by the way. Everyone aside from Hannibal says good morning to her. Leonardo kisses Joan on both cheeks in the European fashion, and Tolkien gives her a hug before everyone shuffles out, aside from Tokugawa. Joan actually pulls him aside and says, Could you make sure they get there without eating each other? Tokugawa nods and says, Of course, before looking at Hannibal, who is just now getting up. Are you sure about... Joan motions to reassure him. I'll be fine. Tokugawa leaves, and she walks over to Hannibal and offers him a hand as he struggles to get up. I promise it doesn't bite. Hannibal pushes aside her hand and gets up on his own feet. Now you listen to me. Everyone else may gush and get all soft in the knees when they see you, but we both know what you really are. You're not a warrior, or a poet, or an artist like the rest of us. He gets right in her face and stares into her eyes. You're just some farm girl who thought her imaginary friends told her to be a superhero. You don't deserve to be here with the rest of us. Joan watches him stomp off before letting out a sigh. Well, Daddy told me I'd meet some interesting people. She yawns and then realizes she's still in her sweaty workout clothes. Oh, well, I sure hope this new guy is nicer than the last one. She walks through the doors, closes them, and the lights fade out. End of Scene 1. That was the first scene of Synthetic Truths. I hope you liked it, and I also hope you could tolerate my very, very awful impression of women's voices. If you liked that scene, but found that part annoying, please subscribe to the podcast via whichever platform you might be listening to. Why? Because then I can get the money to hire actresses to play these female roles. Then I don't have to feel embarrassed, and the rest of you don't have to feel embarrassed on my behalf. Everyone wins. Anyway, if you really liked the episode, please check out any of the content you might not have seen yet. And, if you need to give your ear a break, take a look at some of my written works. I've been told they're quite fun. Thank you for listening to Retrospective Rants, and have a good one.